The world we're living in is in a pretty interesting place. Perhaps we should say it's in a pretty difficult place. It's never faced such big challenges as it's facing right now. Climate change, the fear of nuclear war, fake news, extremism of all kinds. A lot of our certainties of the past are ending. Even Game of Thrones is ending. This can all be very destabilizing. Now, don't get me wrong, the world we live in is an amazingly beautiful place. But I think we can all admit that there are one or two things that we could improve upon. But how? We often feel so stuck, so powerless against all these big problems. And how do we go and get out of this stuckness? Is there an unstuck button? Can we pay for change with a cryptocurrency? Can we move forward in any other way that we haven't thought of yet? And if we knew how to get out of this, how to go beyond our limits, which is the right way? In my own work, and in the volunteer work that I do a lot of workshops and training with young people and not so young people. And I do it in different parts of the world, as well as in Geneva and at the Co-Forum, which is a conference center. There's some summer conferences just above Montreux. And every workshop I work on is about inviting people to find meaning in their life, to be the change, and to go beyond their limits. And in my own journey, I've realized that there are a great many things that I cannot change. But of the few things that I can control, that I can change, they all are in me. There are two tools in particular that have helped me navigate this complex world and go beyond at least my own limits and the limits in the world around me. And those two are silence and love. That's it. It's really that simple. Just put a little more silence, a little more love. You'll go beyond anything. You'll be happier. The world will be better. And good luck. Do I get a prize for quickest TED Talk ever? No? Can I just drop this mic dramatically and walk off stage? Well, since this time ticker here has some time left, we might as well keep going. And what I can offer you is tell a few stories, offer a few models, and perhaps ask a few questions that you'll have to answer yourself. So, first question. What is beyond anyway? I would say it's something just out of our reach, just out of sight. We have a hint or a hunch of where it is or where we think it should be, but a lot of it remains unknown. And what do we do when we face any unknown nowadays? We take out our smartphone, of course. And what does every smartphone need, no matter what version you have? Wi-Fi and energy. I would argue that we are a lot like smartphones. Not because we can practically live without these things anymore, but because we also need connection and energy. I would say Wi-Fi or silence, more or less, is like a secret password to an amazing Wi-Fi. Or another way, you could say like silence is like getting your phone in the right position for that Wi-Fi connection to get through. And energy, as you guessed it, is a lot like love. It's something that runs the whole program, but also needs to be charged from time to time. So, why don't we explore these two together? Because I think together they make the best navigational tool for going beyond your own limits and those of all the problems we've been talking about so far. Why don't we start with the first point? Silence. Now, who am I to talk about silence? Can we even talk about silence? Maybe the best thing to do about silence is just shut up. But if you read anything, either online or in those written things called books that you kind of still use sometimes at school, I think, it's not on the computer, these paper things. If you read anything nowadays, you'll see that silence, there's a lot you can say about silence. You find business journals, psychological journals, even everyday newspapers are talking about silence, how it can be useful in your everyday life, how to deal with stress, how to find meaning, how to deal with your memory loss. It's basically good for everything. There are more and more retreats offered even by businesses on mindfulness, on silence, on how to be more efficient at work. You even have hotels out there that are willing to lock up your phone for you. You pay for it, that they take away from you, so that you can finally be disconnected, or better put, connected with yourself, with the present moment, with nature. I was doing a workshop recently for some humanitarians. They came from some very difficult parts of the world, crises, wars of all kinds. And in the middle of our training, what I told them to do was drop everything, leave your phone, and we went out for a walk, 15 minutes in silence, and just looked at the mountains and the beautiful lake. When we came back, I asked them, how was it? You know what the response was? It was too short. Another one said, I run so much, and I listen to everyone else, and I never listen to myself. Listening to yourself. Probably one of the hardest people to listen to. Probably why we need to practice it. I would say that silence can help with that. Silence and listening go together quite well, and I say silence, like Wi-Fi, can be understood on 3 levels. Do you recognize the images? I would say 1 is downloading, 2 is communicating, and 3 is upgrading. So first of all, silence can be super useful for downloading. Throughout your day, you are running, you are dealing with so many different issues. A brief little moment of silence can be a little check-in, can be like a pause button, can be even a reset button. See where you're at. Ask yourself, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Allow all those attachments that you have been receiving to be downloaded, integrated. Try it. You'll see if it works. Second, I know it might seem logical, but to listen, it takes someone to be silent. So for communicating, anyone who's ever had a bad Skype call, which should be everyone, knows how important connection is. If you don't have a good connection, the communication is going to be off. And how many times have I listened to someone with a sort of pseudo-silence, where I was actually really thinking of something else, or perhaps trying to plan what I was going to say, that the connection didn't pass. And they didn't feel listened to, and I didn't have anything of value to say. One image that might help, that I heard once, is how can I be a blank page in front of others so that they can write everything that they have inside to say. And only at the end of our conversation can they read it back to themselves. Also, give that a try. Lastly, upgrading. All of you know that every once in a while this thing slows down, and you need to upgrade the system. Ask yourselves, do you have a deeper moment of silence, a long hike in the woods, a retreat? You guys know what Jean Monnet did, one of the godfathers of our continent? Right before he proposed his big plan on Europe, he went hiking for 2 weeks in the Alps to clear his head. What he was dealing with was so important and so urgent that he paused for 2 weeks. You can try to tell your professor next time you have a big paper that you need 2 weeks of hiking. Good luck with that. So, if any of you out there thinks you have enough silence in your life, bravo. Usually the answer is not enough. But ask yourself, if there isn't enough, where can I put more? Now that you're silence experts, let's move on to love. In a world craving for likes and basically inundated with heart emojis, we can all admit that probably we're in a bit of a love deficit. But what is love? Well, I think it's a lot of things. What holds families together, what friendships are made of, all of our concepts of romance, and even just the common interactions of human decency that we have every day. I would say you could also use the word compassion. Perhaps for French you could say bienveillance. For me, it's something more than an emotion. It takes effort, but it can be as simple as a smile. I think love is something that we all know can help us go beyond, because that's exactly what it does. It takes you beyond yourself and connects you to someone else and to something greater. To give this a little more explanation, I'll tell you a story. About 12, 15 years ago, I went to Colombia with my brothers, and we visited the second largest city, Medellin. And there were some friends of ours there who were doing some volunteer work at night. They were giving out tea and biscuits to some poor parts of the neighborhood, some barrios. And they invited us to come with them. And for the first time in my life, I saw children, street children, sniffing glue to survive. I saw young girls who were 12 or 13 years old prostituting themselves. And I was struck by the complete unfairness of the situation. I was also struck by the tremendous joy they had in meeting us. Now, of course, we were giving out something that they were happy to have, but they were more happy about the connection, the interaction, the fact that we recognized our shared common humanity. And I realized that doing something with the intention of love doesn't mean it's a handout, doesn't put you above the other person. Love always seeks equality. It seeks reciprocity. It builds community. Perhaps I can explain this also with a model. I call it the love triangle. Now, I don't mean the love triangle that you might have heard of in Netflix or Hollywood. This love triangle is a little different. Bear with me. Love, I think, always has three aspects to it. It starts with me, it goes to another, and it goes beyond. Now, I admit this beyond is difficult to define. You can put other words there. You can put whole, you can put universe, you can put humanity. For those of a religious background, you can put God if you wish. I think it all fits. But the important thing is that there's a flow. You cannot love someone else without, in some sense, also feeling that you have something of value to give. Or in other words, you cannot love someone else without also loving yourself. You cannot love humanity without loving the people next to you and loving yourself. They all kind of flow into each other. They're kind of root and branch of each other. And if they don't flow into each other, there might be a problem. If you're always focused on loving other people and never charge your batteries, take care of yourself, you won't be able to love them, nor yourself, nor humanity at all. Here come some questions that might be able to be asked in a moment of silence. You can ask yourself, what does my love triangle look like? This one, not the Hollywood version. And ask yourself, does it flow? Ask yourself, in situations that I'm dealing with, not what's the right thing to do, or what should I do, but how can I love in this situation? What does love look like in my job? What kind of career can I choose that would allow me to love myself, love others, and love humanity? Go beyond. You know another tough question? Ask yourself, which one of the 3 points is the hardest? If you're anything like me, it's the one on top. Loving yourself is a lifelong project, I admit. But from someone who's tried a lot, I can also say that any step you can make, no matter how small, of accepting yourself, of not comparing yourself to others, will only free you up to love and find love more easily and more freely. Again, if you're anything like me, you might spend a lot of time in front of a computer screen. And you could ask yourself, where's the love there? Love is not just where you find it, it's where you put it. It's in the intention that you put. So in my little moment of silence at the beginning of the day when I center myself, I ask myself, how can I put love at everything I do? In the smiles that I have for my colleagues, and even in my email, even if it's email 147, can I put love in it? Not easy, but it's worth the effort. And that is important, that you should always ask yourself why you do things. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said, who has a strong enough why can bear almost any how. Love can strengthen the why of whatever you do in whatever field you are. Love can be the reason you get up in the morning, the reason you go to bed at a reasonable hour, so you charge those batteries to go out and love yourself, the world, and others again. It can be why the career you choose. It can be why you smile on a difficult day. It can be why you take up some courage, get on stage and give a TED Talk even though you're nervous as hell. Love is a great why. And silence is a great place to ask that why, to check it, to make sure it's still on course. So don't start pressuring yourselves now and feeling that by tomorrow you need to be able to sit in silent meditation for 3 hours and be little Mother Teresa's. It doesn't have to go that fast. Like every journey, it's one step at a time. Just ask yourself, how can I put a little more love and a little more silence today? You know what? Let's give it a try right now. We still have some time. Let's take 30 seconds and just ask yourselves, sit with the question, where did I find love today? And if there wasn't where I wanted it to be, how can I put some more? Let's give it a try. Was that hard? I saw some people cheating back there, by the way. And for the online version, if you paused and you didn't do this properly, you better take the 30 seconds like everyone else. So to tie this all together, I could go back to our phone. It has another good example. Besides being able to have 100 different apps and be able to make telephone calls, which is quite amazing, it also has this thing called a GPS. And I like the model of a GPS because we often put this pressure on ourselves saying we need to take the right next step in our career or to save the world. And how do we know it's the right one? It'll be wrong and I'll ruin everything. When in fact, the GPS, when you turn right or you turn left, it just recalculates. Love and silence have this tremendous retrospective capacity of making sense out of what you've gone through. They help you learn. I would say quite boldly that love makes sense. It makes sense not just because it's the smartest thing you can do for yourself, for others, and for the world, but it makes sense because it can make sense out of what you go through. It can give meaning to your life. You know, supposedly, we use this thing about 100 times a day. Imagine if we put just even a fraction of that effort into love and silence. So, what have we learned? You learned a new definition for the love triangle. You learned the importance of connection on various levels. And you learned the importance of both using and charging your energy. All that's left for you to do is enjoy your journey beyond. Bon voyage.